Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Mark Green here, the Diabetes Diet Guy, talking all things diabetes and healthy living. Now, I recently posted in my Facebook group asking our members living with diabetes what their biggest challenges are. And we had a really good response, so thank you for that. And the first video that I wanted to make based on those replies was how to prevent hypos. People seem to be struggling with this topic, and the hypos are causing them problems for lots of different individual reasons. Some, obviously, just having hypos is a problem. It makes you feel lousy. Whereas others might be following a certain diet. There seems to be a theme about Slimming World or Weight Watchers, now known as WW. Or some other diets where they're having to tap into their calorie allowances, which obviously then prevents them losing weight if they're constantly having to eat to treat hypos. Others, it was around exercise and lots of other reasons as well. So in this video, I wanted to show you the most common causes of hypos and what you can do about it. Now remember, if you haven't done so already, we've got a lot more information on my blog at diabetesdietguy.com, where we have a bunch of free information available to you for all the different types of diabetes, and it's there completely free. If you need an extra helping hand, we do have some exciting news. Whereas we previously used to offer just consultancy and programs for those people that needed an extra helping hand, we've now amalgamated the services. So when you purchase the program for £90, you also get a one-to-one session with an accredited and specialist diabetes dietitian to work through your challenges specific to you. So if you're interested, head over to the blog and find out more, diabetesdietguy.com. Let's get into the video. Well, to kick this off then, first we need to understand why you're having hypos in the first place. Now, of course, there'll be other reasons other than the ones I've listed, but these are probably the most common causes. So most people having hypos will be having some form of diabetes medication. If you're having hypos outside of diabetes medication, then it's likely more nutritional, and actually it's a separate problem away from diabetes. And there's only a couple of diabetes medications that actually induce hypoglycemia. One is insulin, and one is sulfonylureas like gliclazide and glimepiride, amongst some others. But gliclazide and glipizide are probably the most common actually. So insulin is definitely one of the biggest causes, as is the sulfonylureas. There's different types of insulin, which we're going to need to talk about in a little bit because there are some implications depending on what type you're taking. Obviously, your nutrition and alcohol intake will have an impact. So if you're not eating as much as you used to, or you've made some dietary changes, but you're taking the same amount of medication, then you're likely going to encounter some low glucose events, or at least the glucose levels will be lower than what they previously were. With regards to alcohol lowers blood glucose levels. Your liver is responsible for providing an internal supply of glucose to your circulation to top you up. The only problem is your liver also processes alcohol, and it's not very clever. It can't do both at the same time. So it switches off that internal supply of glucose and breaks up the alcohol. And whilst it's doing that, you got no internal supply, so your glucose levels start to drop. Now, in those circumstances, usually your body would dial back its insulin. But if you're taking insulin, it can't do that. So you get a double whammy, and it makes you susceptible to those hypos. And of course, as rightly pointed out by the members in our Facebook group, exercise is a big one. And it's a similar idea with the alcohol. Usually when you exercise, your body has a different mechanism from taking glucose from the blood and putting it into the cells to be used as energy, independent of insulin. Usually when you exercise without diabetes, your body turns off or dials back its insulin supply because this other mechanism called using GLUT4 receptors act like shuttle buses. They drive out from inside the cell, grab the glucose, bring it inside the cell to be used as energy. But when you're injecting insulin, you cannot dial back the insulin unless you're using an insulin pump. So again, you get a double whammy effect where you have the same amount of insulin in your body at all times, and also these GLUT4 receptors kicking into gear, and so you're susceptible to hypos. So they're probably the most common causes. But what can we do about it? Now, obviously with hypos, prevention is the best cure. And to understand what's going on, you need to track your glucose levels quite meticulously. So I suggest first and foremost, get testing, see what's happening day to day so you can get that pattern. You might find that actually it's quite a simple fix, happens the same time of day, every day, during the walk to work, say, or after a couple of glasses of wine, or actually after a particular meal where you're taking a certain amount of insulin. But of course, it depends on what your situation is. So the first one I just wanted to talk about here was mixed insulin. Now, if you're not familiar with mixed insulin, it's exactly what the name implies. It's two types of insulin mixed together. It is rapid insulin, which is designed for taking with your food, and it's also a longer lasting intermediate acting insulin that lasts about 12 hours. That one stops your liver releasing too much glucose in that internal supply. But they're mixed together. So the problem is, if you need more rapid insulin for your meals, if you increase your insulin, you're going to increase the longer acting component at the same time. And vice versa. If you need more insulin to sort out higher blood glucose levels later in the day, perhaps in the morning after the evening, say, you are also then increasing the rapid element of that insulin at the mealtime, which might be too much. So these are quite inflexible insulins. They're very effective for certain people, but your dietary intake really needs to be quite strict in order to prevent problems. So usually with these types of insulins, you'll find to get the best results, you need to be having a very similar amount of carbohydrates and quite standardized throughout the day, so you know exactly where you stand with your doses. And if you don't, you'll find that you get varying levels of glucose throughout the day and day to day, and that includes hypos. Number 2 on the list, sulfonylureas. So sulfonylureas, the way they work is they tell your pancreas to release more insulin. They give it a little kick. So more insulin gets squirted out. How long that will last in your body varies depending on the different type of sulfonylurea. Now again, similar to the mixed insulins, you don't have so much control really about how much is being released. So it's designed to reduce your glucose levels. So if you end up on these meds, it probably means that your glucose levels have been running high. So if you start to make any changes, eating less carbs, getting more active, or just doing things differently, even losing weight, you'll find that actually what was previously controlling high glucose levels now takes you and pushes you low. So if that's happening with sulfonylureas, there are dose reductions that you can do. So usually the max dose is 160 milligrams, and you can take that several times a day. Or you can always start to reduce the doses at certain meals where the problems are occurring. Or if you're at the lowest dose, which tends to be around 30 or 40 milligrams, depending on the type that you're taking, and I'm talking generally here about the most common, which is gliclazide, then you can always speak to the GP, the doctor, the diabetes team, the diabetes nurse, and see if actually there's a more suitable medication out there for you. Because if you're having frequent hypos, there are other medications still in the tablet form that don't cause hypos. Rapid insulin. Now this one is very, very specific in very certain situations. Now most people taking rapid insulin will be carbohydrate counting. They'll have type 1 diabetes, but you also do find people with type 2 diabetes taking it, and type 3, but we treat those as type 1s generally. So rapid insulin is going to have big implications about your nutritional intake, your alcohol intake, and your exercise. Now, as a rule, if you're constantly getting lows after meals, it means you're taking too much rapid insulin for your nutritional intake, for the carbohydrates in your diet. So it quite easily means, really simplistically, you just need to dial it back. Now, there could be several reasons for that. If you're carbohydrate counting, you might be miscalculating the carbs in your meal. You might be using the wrong ratio for insulin to carbohydrates, so you might want to look at that. But you might have also done other things around this dose that has implications for your glucose results, like exercise. If you have exercised before, or you're going to exercise within the action of that rapid insulin, which lasts 4.5 hours, you have insulin plus exercise. And that's going to push your glucose levels down further than what previously would have been seen. So what you need to start doing is shaving off some rapid insulin in order to accommodate that. This is something I talk about with my type 1 diabetes program online, which also now comes with a consultation, and something I talk about with patients and clients all the time. There are some very specific exercise strategies you can put in place, but it probably goes beyond the scope of this video to really talk about it. In a simplistic term, maybe start with a 25% reduction around exercise and see how that works. But really the strength is in the data. Test your glucose levels a lot and see how it works out. And then we have basal insulin. So basal insulin will be the longer acting insulins, 24-hour. You might take it with rapid, you might not. Some people might just take it once a day, some people take it twice a day. Now this usually is kind of like your introductory insulin, unless you have type 1 diabetes, in which case you'll have that straight in with rapid. But usually when people have too much basal insulin, the hypos start to occur in the morning. And the reason is they'll have a certain dose, which will start to get up titrated, so they'll increase it to compensate for food that's pushing your glucose levels high in the day. And then overnight it drops you. So essentially you've got too much basal insulin, because this isn't really designed for food, but not everyone will take rapid insulin or mixed insulin to accommodate that. So glucose levels start to go up, drop down overnight. If you see big swings in your glucose levels when you're not eating with your basal insulin, it means the dose is probably too much. But then you think, well, if the glucose levels are rising throughout the day, then I need to take that amount of insulin to prevent them going too high, but then it's causing a hypo in the morning. Really quickly, simplistic, probably the wrong insulin for you. Re-engage with your diabetes team, your doctors, show them the data on your glucose charts and say, this isn't working for me, what else you got? And then they can make a judgment based on what you would like, what they would like. I know time can be an issue, but really do scrutinize the pros and cons of the different regimens, because there are lots of different regimens with insulin. And the different types of insulin or treatments. And you should really understand those before you start getting put onto a regimen. So always ask the question. So we're going to leave it there, guys, because I feel like this video might be going on a little bit. Remember, head over to the blog at diabetesdietguide.com. Bunch of information there. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you did, and hit the notification bell if you want to know when we post. See you later.